wealth, power, and influence. J.P. Morgan had it all. He owned the first billion-dollar company. He dominated the country's most profitable industries. And on multiple occasions, the economy of the United States quite literally depended on the actions of J.P. Morgan. With a simple word or the stroke of a pen, he could save a company from collapse or doom it to bankruptcy. Hated by some, admired by others, there will never be another man quite like J.P. Morgan. This is his story. In the spring of 1837, in the affluent city of Hartford, Connecticut, a figure destined to command the world of finance was born. John Pierpont Morgan entered a world of immense privilege, a stark contrast to the lives of most Americans at the time. His family was already part of the nation's burgeoning financial aristocracy. His father, Junius Spencer Morgan, was a formidable and already wealthy banker who cast a long shadow. From the very beginning, Junius had a clear and unwavering plan for his son. John was to follow in his footsteps and one day take the helm of the family's financial empire. The pressure was immense. Junius ensured his son received the finest education money could buy, a curriculum meticulously designed not just for knowledge, but for dominion over the world of international banking. However, this gilded childhood was marred by a constant, debilitating battle. Despite the wealth that surrounded him, John's youth was bleak and isolated. He was a perpetually sickly child, plagued by a host of ailments that kept him confined indoors while other children played. He suffered from brutal coughing fits, chronic skin conditions, and severe migraines. At one point, he was nearly killed by rheumatic fever. These physical trials were relentless, shaping a personality of intense focus and steely resolve, perhaps forged in defiance of his own physical fragility. To escape the harsh New England winters, and in a desperate attempt to restore his health, his family sent him to the remote Azores Islands. This period of forced convalescence further isolated him, but it also marked the beginning of a European chapter in his education. After the Azores, he attended a Swiss boarding school to perfect his French, followed by studies at the prestigious University of Göttingen in Germany, where he became fluent in German and developed a keen eye for art history. This grand tour of European education equipped him with the languages, connections, and cosmopolitan perspective essential for a future titan of global finance. He returned to America not just healthier, but armed with an intellectual arsenal, ready to begin the career his father had so carefully orchestrated for him. From a young age, John Pierpont Morgan was not like other boys. While his peers might have been found playing outside, young JP was often confined indoors. Not by choice, but by a frail constitution that would plague him throughout his early life. Instead of games, you'd find him immersed in a world that would come to define him, the intricate and demanding realm of finance. He wasn't just reading books, he was dissecting financial statements, absorbing the language of capital, and learning the rhythms of the market under the watchful eye of his powerful father, Junius Spencer Morgan. This studious isolation was brutally enforced when, as a teenager, John became completely incapacitated by a severe bout of rheumatic fever. The illness left him bedridden and in agonizing pain for months. His father, a man who valued strength and resilience above all, devised a radical and rather severe prescription for recovery. Junius's solution was to send his ailing son to live entirely by himself in the remote Azores Islands, a volcanic archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The belief was that the temperate climate and salty sea air would cure him. For nearly a year, the young Morgan was left to his own devices, a solitary figure battling his illness thousands of miles from home. This period of forced independence, while harrowing, undoubtedly forged a core of self-reliance and steely determination that would become his trademark. When he was finally well enough, his formal education resumed with an intensity designed to make up for lost time. He was sent to the English High School of Boston, then to a private school in Switzerland to perfect his French, and finally to the prestigious University of Göttingen in Germany. There, he honed his German and, more importantly, demonstrated a remarkable aptitude for mathematics. This world-class multilingual education was not for intellectual curiosity alone. It was a calculated investment by his father, crafting the perfect heir to a transatlantic financial dynasty. By 1857, at the age of 20, John Pierpont Morgan was fluent, cultured, and exceptionally numerate. His apprenticeship was over. He returned to America and took his first step into the world he was born to command, starting as an accountant at the New York banking house of Duncan, Sherman and Company. This was the American representative for his father's firm, George Peabody and Company. The young Morgan was now on Wall Street, perfectly positioned at the nexus of European capital and American ambition, ready to begin building his own empire. Now 19 years old and ready to enter the workforce at this point, John's father was a junior partner at a London-based merchant banking firm called George Peabody and Co. And thanks to his father, John was able to get a job on Wall Street in the banking firm, which looked after Peabody's interest in America. Part of John's job involved writing reports to his father's firm, detailing the financial and political goings-on in America, which of course at the time was still an emerging market. However, from an early age, John's father feared that upon his return to America, John Pierpont Morgan began his career in finance, but not without friction. His father, Junius, a titan of London's banking world, held a deeply conservative view of business. He believed his son was too rash and hot-tempered to ever become a successful financier, and that he needed to learn restraint and responsibility. Junius's bank, George Peabody and Co., was built on reputation and cautious, steady growth. He saw Pierpont's aggressive instincts not as an asset, but as a dangerous liability that could tarnish the family name. The elder Morgan's letters were a constant stream of paternal advice, urging his son to avoid speculation and embrace the slow, deliberate path to wealth. But Pierpont was a product of a different world, the dynamic, often chaotic, and rapidly expanding American economy. He saw opportunities where his father saw only risk. One example of this clash of philosophies came in 1859. While on a business trip to New Orleans, Morgan was walking the docks when he encountered a ship captain in a bind. The captain had a full cargo of Brazilian coffee, but the firm that had ordered it had gone bankrupt while the ship was at sea. The cargo had no buyer, and the captain was desperate to offload it before it spoiled. Where others saw a problem, Morgan smelled an opportunity. It was a seemingly reckless gamble. Using the company's credit without authorization, he purchased the entire shipment. He then swiftly contacted a network of merchants he knew, leveraging his connections and the scarcity of the product to his advantage. The risk paid off handsomely. Morgan sold the coffee and made a tidy profit, proving his instincts were sharp. But when news reached London, his father was furious. Even though the venture was successful, Junius and the other senior partners of the banking house couldn't stand this kind of unauthorized risk-taking. It violated every principle of their conservative banking ethos. For them, the process and the preservation of reputation were more important than a single speculative profit. This incident solidified in Pierpont's mind that he could never truly thrive under his father's rigid control. He craved autonomy. So, in 1861, at the age of 24, John Pierpont Morgan left the safety and security of his father's firm to strike out on his own. He founded J.P. Morgan and Company in New York City, a bold declaration of his financial independence. However, this was not a complete severing of ties. In a move that demonstrated his strategic thinking, his new company was established to act as the American agent for his father's bank back in England. He had carved out his own domain while ensuring he still had access to the immense capital and credibility of the London financial world. He was now his own man, but with a powerful transatlantic connection that would prove invaluable. It was also that year that Morgan's personal life took a pivotal turn. He married his first love, Amelia Sturgis, known as Mimi. She was beautiful and intelligent, but tragically, she was also frail, suffering from tuberculosis. Young woman named Amelia Sturgis, and for a brief period, John was the happiest he'd ever been. However, Amelia soon came down with a persistent cough that was later diagnosed as tuberculosis. So right after their wedding, John took her on an extended honeymoon in the Mediterranean, hoping that the new climate might restore her strength just like John's father had tried for him when he was younger. But it was no use. John's wife died just 4 months after their wedding, leaving John a widower at 24. Understandably, he was an inconsolable mess, and it's believed he never truly recovered from this tragic loss of his wife at such a young age. Immediately after losing her, John threw himself deep into his work more than ever. However, whilst John was going through his own crisis, so was the United States. Around this time, the American Civil War had broken out, and the 1863 Conscription Act should have meant John went off to fight. But he didn't. Instead, John paid $300 to be removed from enlisting and have a substitute stand in his place. That's not to say John London get involved in the war, though in fact, on the contrary, he profited from it hugely. One of the most notable examples was when he financed the purchase of 5,000 surplus Hall carbine rifles, of .350 each, from the government that were considered too old to use, but then the consortium who bought them made some minor adjustments and almost immediately sought the same rifles back to the government for $22 each. It was an over $600 increase in price, and thus, whilst it was a very lucrative deal for John to be involved in this war, profiteering was certainly not popular with the public or the government, but that was the least of his worries. John would soon be facing some much bigger controversies. In 1871, John saw the golden opportunity to team up with one of the leading. He partnered with one of the most respected financiers in the country, a banker named Anthony Drexel. Together, they founded the Drexel, Morgan & Co.'s private merchant banking house.